I'd like to call this meeting of the Architectural Design and Planning Commission to order. Chairman Bartholet, will you, Chairman, Councilman.
Wow.
Wow, that's a rough day for me. Okay. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
All you're missing is mayor.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, you used to be the Simpleman's chair.
I just saw the back of your chair.
Mr. Man.
Roll call, please.
Commissioners Catherine Carlson, absent. Amanda Haas.
Present.
Andrew Mercy.
Present.
Timothy Wiley.
Present.
Vice Chair Russell Bartholet.
Present.
Chairperson April Bartlett.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay through the entire meeting due to extenuating circumstances, a total of 10 minutes is provided at this time, during which input may be given regarding agenda items. Individual speakers are limited to 2 minutes each. Any person who would like to address the Architectural and Design Commission on any agendized item is requested to complete a speaker card for the recording secretary and identify the agenda item you would like to discuss. Each person will be given an opportunity to address the Architectural and Design Commission at the time such item is discussed by the Architectural and Design Commission. Speaker cards available at the entrance of the Large Parks, Recreation, and Arts Conference Room. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each.
We don't have any speaker cards.
No speakers. So we need a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of September 6, 2012. I move to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Are we voting?
Pushing the buttons or raising our hands, or what's better? Oh, anyone going to second?
I second that.
All in favor? Did it work? So the motion is approved, 5-0. Okay, let's see. Is this going to be you, Elma? Are you going to be updating us on the planning initiative projects?
The first one is going to be the draft residential zones, and Chen's going to give that presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We'll excuse Brian Ludicky. He's unavailable for this meeting. But we're going to update you on the status of a couple of projects that we've been working on. The draft residential zones, I don't think we've brought it up before this commission, but this is something that the Planning Commission has been reviewing for almost a good last year. What the residential zones are is this is the section of the zoning ordinance that regulates residential development. It's the entire chapter 17.08 of the zoning code. And for this past year, we've taken a draft for the Planning Commission to review, and as of October of 2012, they did recommend the residential zones to the City Council for their review. And we plan on taking this to the Council earlier this year. We'll be taking a revised draft of the residential zones back to the Planning Commission this January meeting. But just as a broad overview of what the residential zones does, it contains the development standards for residential uses, and it similar to what this commission had worked on with the design guidelines, whereas the design guidelines provides guidance as to how residential development should look architecturally. The regulations include specific quantitative measurements such as setbacks from property lines, lot coverage, and also the types of uses that are allowed within each of the residential zones. As you may or may not know, the residential zones, it contains several single-family zones. We have the R7000, which is minimum 7,000 square foot lot size, ranging to, we have the R10,000, R15,000, then we have the rural zoning of SRR, semi-rural residential, and RR1, RR2.5. RR2.5 being the largest single-family zone that we have for estate-type properties or ranch-style properties, minimum 2.5-acre lots. So what the zoning code for the residential zones, it contains regulations for each of those zones. And throughout the past year, we've been working through all of these standards and regulations, and we try to have these regulations and standards mirror what was adopted for the design guidelines. So in essence, we're trying to provide it some more teeth. And it's different than the existing zoning, because a lot of the responses that we got from our existing zoning code was that it produces a lot of cookie-cutter type residential development. So as a result of the design guidelines, the approval of the design guidelines, we took that as the direction that the city wants to go towards, and adopted more specific regulations for future residential development. A couple examples of something that will be new compared to the existing zoning code. We're asking that a percentage, that a majority of the location of garages be recessed behind the front plane of the house, so that what you see at the front of the house is your entrance and a porch feature, more so than the garage sticking out in front of the front entrance. Another design feature that we're asking for are for developers to include porches and balconies as part of their front elevations. And so those are just a couple of examples of the changes. We're also proposing that new development include solar as part of their residential development. This was something that was intensely discussed among the Planning Commission, and may be intensely discussed among the City Council members. But we felt that the city really wanted to go in this direction. There was some discussion as to whether it was fair to mandate this as opposed to allowing developers to provide it as an option. And we've have talked to the various builders out here, KB, Rich and American, and we talked about the feasibility of including this as a standard option. And they've responded and worked with us and said that this is something that they may be able to include and standardize. Of course, there's some trade-offs. The new zoning code also encourages, it allows for more flexibility. We're trading off density and flexibility. We say, if we ask for these design features and additional solar amenities, then we would allow the developers to perhaps increase the number of houses that they may build on their project site, so that it's still a feasible project for them. So all of these considerations are included in the draft residential zones. Again, I said this was recommended for approval in October. We're going to take it back to them one more time in January, later this month, because there were some last-minute additions that we wanted to include. So that, in a nutshell, is the status of the zoning update. The copies of the draft, you can find it online. If you're curious about it, I'd be more than happy to forward a draft of the residential zones to all the commissioners.
I think that'd be great. I do have a question.
Yeah.
You heard said that that you may be allowing them to have more density. Is that going to be allowing smaller than 7,000 square foot lots?
Possibly, yeah. Through a residential plan development application, so through RPD. It has to be, when the city gives up density, we often would ask for something in exchange. I mean, it's a trade-off. So it's not, just allowing them to build smaller for nothing. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much does the new zoning address landscaping? And, with the design guidelines, there were some new implementation in terms of the low water xeriscaping and this type of landscaping, and I have seen it well done. I think the city houses that are, I guess, I don't know who they belong to, or, the homes that are across the street from American Heroes Park that were part of redevelopment, I believe. I think that those are an excellent example of really great low water landscaping that incorporates rocks and sort of the plants that are appropriate for the high desert. But I have also seen a number of properties where they basically gravel over their front yard, and unfortunately that fits within our design guidelines, which maybe is a separate conversation for existing homes. But in terms of new construction, oftentimes that new construction includes your front yard. But in a situation where it doesn't, you have individuals responsible for their own landscaping, or if the builders are responsible but they are looking for a way to cut costs or something like this, is there protection of that aesthetic? Because like I said, I think it's something new, and I think that the city is learning how to kind of properly manage it, and I'm just want to make sure that we maintain
you're
the
right
aesthetic.
about that. And the planners, we've recognized that some of the new tracks, the front yard landscaping really isn't up to the standard that we were expecting. The new zoning code, it references the existing landscape ordinance that was adopted. So a lot of this comes down to the plan check stage for when the developers submit their landscape plans. It's on staff to make sure that the plans that they submit and are what we want, and that it meets our design standards. So
Okay.
there are some differences in that the new zoning code does allow them, give developers the option of a shorter front yard. Right now, the front yard setback is 20 feet. With the new draft, they could choose to go up to 14. What that allows them to do is have their front entrance in front of their garage entrance. But what it may also do is shorten up the front yard landscaping, and perhaps what they may be able to do is take advantage of a shorter front yard, but be able to bulk up on the landscaping so it doesn't look so sparse. Yeah.
I know definitely like to have a copy of that. Would everyone like to have a copy? Yeah, I think we'd all like to have a copy.
Okay, sure.
Great.
I'll be happy to forward that to you.
Thank you very much.
And so then, in your opinion, it's handled, like the issue has been addressed?
Well, I think it's more. No, not entirely. It needs to be handled at administrative level.
Check level.
Yeah, and so, but I'd be happy to follow up, and because it's on the responsibility of right now building and safety. They're the ones that review these plans, and so, but we recognize that there's a need for improvement in that area.
Okay.
So going forward, Chen, with the concern that the current landscaping or the most recent landscaping wasn't up to the standard that the city thought, has there been a discussion on how that fell through? Was it, I don't don't know, to say devious by the builders? Were they trying to cut corners and costs and come up with the cheapest possible way to put in that yard, or was it just an honest error of plan check and builder miscommunication?
I'm speaking from kind of my personal point of view, and maybe sharing the view of maybe the other planners. Maybe Elman would agree that the landscaping that we've been getting, it really isn't up to par. But we haven't had a formal discussion on how to address this. And this is something that requires multiple departments working together to make sure that, because it's not just a review of the plans, but once the landscaping is installed, it's on the inspector to go out there to make sure that they're installed properly and that it looks good. So.
And what type of consideration is there? I mean, there'd be substantial cost to the builder to require them to rip out what was installed, or to augment that to come up to standard. Has there been leveraging by the builders on the city to push back and say, no, this is what we're doing, we're not doing it anymore? Or
no, we haven't heard that from them. And in fact, I don't think we've communicated that to the developers that this really doesn't look all that great. I'm sharing the perspectives of the planners here.
And it may not be relevant, but how much new construction do we have currently for residential neighborhoods in the city?
Within the last couple of years, as you may know, the big drop-off was after 2008.
Right.
Prior to 2008, we were averaging, 04, 05, 06, about 2,500 per year. I would say there's been a 90% decline. The last 4 years, we've been averaging about 200 to 250 each year. But still, that's still a handful of homes being built.
Do we have any neighborhoods coming up in the plans to say, okay, we're going to treat these differently? Or with what we've experienced in the last year or so?
Well, I don't think it's been really communicated to the builders that, these really don't look as good as they should. And I think the first thing that needs to do is staff needs to get together and come up, and have a consensus on the fact that this doesn't look good in the community.
Is the city getting any feedback from the owners, the resident of the residences, or is this more of a staff perspective of touring the neighborhoods and seeing what's come of the
Yeah, I haven't heard anything
construction?
personally from property owners. I think it's more of a staff perspective that it looks kind of sparse when you go out there. It looks like just a lot of gravel in the front yard.
Right.
So.
One tree and a bunch of rocks.
And not to mention, sometimes over a few months, what we find is the weeds kind of break through, and then it really starts looking poor.
Right.
Yeah. If there are not any further questions, I'll turn the time over to Elma.
Thank you. Good evening. As you know, let's see, the Southeast Transit Village Planning Area, you attended the workshop back in October and then again in November. And since then, the consultant, David Sargent, has submitted to us a final plan. We received that right before Christmas, so I don't have that available for you. We will be putting it on the city's webpage, and as soon as we do, I'll make sure you get that link. Some of the highlights of the vision plan include to transform the existing streets, which currently favor the automobile, into complete streets, which is that it provides safe access for all users, including pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, transit riders, for all ages and abilities. It also includes the repair and complete the area's internal street network where there's missing street segments. And the next thing is to introduce varied park space in the area, which include community gardens and tot lots. It includes transforming Sierra Highway for a number of blocks both north and south of the boulevard into a downtown avenue by introducing curbside parking, corner bulb outs, crosswalks, and improved bicycle facilities. It includes the connection across the railroad tracks by mending the gap of the east-west sides of the railroad track by introducing a new pedestrian or an additional vehicle track crossing, which may include a crossing under Milling Street and Sierra Highway for pedestrians and a possible overpass bridge for pedestrians. It also includes the redesign of the Metrolink station as an urban pedestrian-oriented multimodal transit facility so that it has a strong civic presence for pedestrians and cyclists, and that it can be serviced by the buses to stop in front of the Metrolink station. It also includes extending the boulevard down to Yucca by adding landscaping and a median in Lancaster Boulevard, and then to refurbish existing buildings there as a Main Street commercial type place. It also discusses capitalizing on the area's proximity to downtown and the Metrolink station to transform the vacant and underutilized parcels into compact, mixed-use, walkable area, having mixed-use buildings up to 4 stories tall, and to accommodate either residential, office, or retail uses in that area. It also discusses the possibility of amending the city's master plan of drainage so that the stormwater basin, if it's not required in that particular area, maybe it can be relocated closer to the railroad tracks, and then using that vacant parcel where the stormwater basin was to be more compatible with the neighborhoods that are there, considering alternatives as for residential or office buildings, or using it as an educational or an institutional or a corporate campus of some sort in that area. There was also discussion of creating a buffer zone between the TOD area and the neighborhoods to the south of it, so that in the southern portion of the TOD that they can continue with the industrial uses, and then maybe having a buffer in the middle and then residential toward the north to make it a little smoother in that area. And also talking about that southern zone of the industrial area, maybe continuing its south across Avenue J so that there could be larger parcels for industrial uses there. But those are some of the highlights in the plan. There's a lot of great pictures in the plan, a lot of maps. I think they did a really good job with that. So once we get it up on the web page, I'll let you know.
I have a question.
Okay.
Regarding the the multiple uses for pedestrian and cycles and stuff that you're putting down in that area, how can we ensure that the bicycle lanes, when they're put in, that they're done when there's a buffer? Let's use Valley Central Way as an example, that when there is room for a buffer, that the buffer is between the car and the cyclist and not the on the other side of the cyclist, so that it's a safer area.
Yeah, I think what the area that they're looking at for putting in the bicycle lanes are possibly on Yucca and Trevor, maybe having the Class 2s there. The other streets will be the Class 3s, just the routes with the correct signage and such. This is all preliminary, but we will definitely keep that in consideration as we're doing more bike lanes in the city.
Great.
And by the way, unrelated, but I love that bike lane on Valley Central Way, the color-coded bike lane. That was so cool. I was driving around there when they were painting it, and it was just so neat, and it was so exciting to see that go in, and I think it does make a big difference. I don't know, April rides more bikes than I do. I don't know if she's had a chance to ride over there, but it was really neat to see it. So.
Have you looked at 25th West as well? Have you seen it? You need to drive it as well. So we got Valley Central Way, and then one street over, right behind the shopping.
Yeah.
That one has also had...
I've ridden that with my kids. It's much safer. Yeah. And if anything, it brings awareness. The Valley Central Way brings awareness to a bike lane, which I think is benefiting us throughout the whole city of creating awareness while they're driving on other roads that aren't as duly marked, but I mean, that's quite a marking we put there on Valley Central.
It's very extensive, and I think when we do the next...
it's quite a billboard.
When we continue it, we'll only be putting the green lanes in where there's traffic conflicts, so where there's a turning area or crossing, that's where we'll have the green, because it's expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, continuing on to the next project. Oh, is there any more questions? Comments? On the other? Okay. So continuing on the transit-oriented development overlay zone, give you a little bit of background to kind of refresh your memory what we're doing on this one. Back in October, the city was awarded grant funding from Los Angeles County, MTA, for the preparation for adoption of some changes to support transit-oriented development. One of the things we're wanting to do is to amend the general plan to extend the existing boundary of the downtown transit village district from just a quarter mile around the Metrolink station to a half mile around the Metrolink station. We're going to be updating the general plan use map as well. We're going to create a new TOD overlay zone for 2 planning areas. Planning area 1 is approximately 84 acres in size, located northeast of the Metrolink station between Avenues I and Milling and Sierra Highway and Division. Planning Area 2 is 102 acres in size. It's located east of the Metrolink station and it's south of the downtown boulevard here between Milling and New Grove, from Fig to Date, from J to Sierra Highway. So if you picture we've got the downtown specific plan here. It's the area south of it to J. So that's Area 2. We'll be updating the zoning map, and we'll be updating Title 17, the zoning ordinance, to include these overlay regulations and design standards. And I think we're basically going to a form-based code in doing so. So that was back in October that we received the grant. The mid-October, we put out a request for proposal to go out and find a consultant to help us do this work. After receiving the proposals and conducting interviews, staff felt that Sargenttown Planning, that did the vision plan, was the best to perform this work for us and our stakeholders. Sargenttown Planning is going to be in association with Tony Perez Associates, who's also well-known for doing form-based codes, Nelson Nygaard, who's known for his transportation, and Metropolitan Research and Economics for our market assessment group. So we feel that this team has collaborated with the city before, and we'll feel that they will do a good job. We have a staff report going to City Council on the 8th to recommend that we hire Sargenttown Planning to do this work for us, do this effort. And we're planning on having our kickoff meeting on January 15th. So we're ready to go. Okay, any questions?
It's great. It's exciting.
Not on that topic, but you know what? I just feel I'm really stuck on this landscaping thing, and I just feel I would be remiss if I didn't ask for some sort of guidance or action, I guess I would say. I'm thinking about how you talked about the gravel and the weeds coming through, and this is all from a very practical perspective. A normal, let's say, gardener that you hire is what we term mow and blow. So they'll mow your lawn and blow the leaves away, but most don't, for their monthly fee, deal with heavy weed issues that do arise with gravel yards. So you're looking at an extra expense to a homeowner to manage that type of landscaping that I don't think you necessarily think about when these things are first implemented. And you're also looking at what's the alternative to Roundup, basically, large areas, whole neighborhoods, essentially, of their front yards, however many square feet that would be. And I just think that whether it's some other alternative in weed abatement, I think this is a bigger conversation. I really do. And I think that this is, in this planning stage moving forward, I think that now is the time to address and resolve it, and I don't know if that's something just as an individual commissioner I need to take to the planning commission, or if it's something that we can handle at this level, just to open up a conversation and to pass on to the planning commission that at least I, for one, have some concerns both with cost to the homeowner in terms of in terms of maintenance, maybe it's an education issue. You know, I love to garden, and I find gardening out here challenging. It's not something I'd ever done before, and I think I'm not alone, especially with the xeriscaping. So I just think that it's a bigger conversation, and I think it's important to the aesthetic of our community.
I think we'll certainly note this, and a lot of this does fall under the purview of code enforcement, but I think as a larger discussion, I think it really touches a lot of different departments. And you know, I'll take this back to our planning director, Brian Ludicky, and see how he wants to address this.
Does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. So our new business is to discuss the date and times of the ADC meetings proceeding forward. So should we maybe decide, does Thursday, the first Thursday of the month, work for everyone? Does someone have a better suggestion of times that would be better, day that would be better?
Is this conversation fueled by the lack of attendance over the last few months?
Somewhat, I think. We just want to make sure that everybody's able to be here and that it's a good time for everyone to...
I have no problem with the time. I think I just missed. I was on vacation that last time. Other than that, I have no problem with the time.
Yeah, timing's fine. For me, just to work commitments come and go. But.
Okay. So we'll just leave it as is then. Okay, so that wraps that up. Public business from the floor. Non-agendized items. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the Commission on any subject regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing this Commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. Please complete a speaker card for the recording secretary. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. No speaker cards? Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Yep. This meeting is adjourned to Thursday, February 7th at 5 p.m. in Council Chambers.